911, what's your emergency?
Yes, I need Decatur County 911.
This is him. What's wrong, dear?
Listen, 681 Swan Johnson Road. Somebody has my daughter. Somebody in full camouflage got Holly. They grabbed her and took her to the woods. Please, get everybody out there.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us.
In the rural town of Decatur County, Tennessee, where trees and farmland stretch as far as the eye can see, life moves slowly. With a population of just 2,500, it's the kind of close-knit community where everyone knows each other. This quiet town was home to 20-year-old Holly Bobo, a bright and ambitious nursing student with a promising future ahead of her. Holly was the daughter of Karen and Dana Bobo, with an older brother, Clint. Holly's mother worked as a teacher at Scotts Hill Elementary School. The family had a musical connection through Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan. Holly was also a singer herself. Raised in a Christian household, Holly was close to her mother. But more than anything, she was driven by her dream of becoming a nurse and building a life with her boyfriend, Drew Scott, who had already given her a promise ring as a symbol of their future together. But even in the safest places, darkness can be closer than you think. What happened to Holly Bobo? How did a life so full of hope and promise suddenly take such a horrifying turn? This is the story of a young woman who had it all, until one day, she was vanished from her house. On the fateful morning of April 13, 2011, Holly woke up at 4:30 a.m. to study for an upcoming exam. Her mother, Karen, had packed her lunch before heading to work. Holly was sitting at the kitchen table, studying, when her mother kissed her goodbye and told her she loved her, just like every other morning.
Sitting at the kitchen table, studying, and I kissed her goodbye and told her I loved her, just like every other morning.
3 hours later, at 7:30 a.m., she answered a call from her boyfriend, Drew Scott, who was out hunting. At this point, she was alone in the house with her brother, Clint Bobo. Less than 15 minutes later, when she ended the call with her boyfriend, she gathered her belongings and made her way to the attached carport, ready to head to school. At 7:45 a.m., a neighbor, James Barnes, couldn't ignore the sounds of an argument next door.
Around 7:40 that morning, a neighbor was getting ready to go to work and was outside, and he heard a scream from next door.
He heard a woman shouting for someone to stop, followed by chilling screams that sent shivers down his spine.
Holly screaming, "Stop, stop, stop."
Disturbed by what he had heard, James immediately called his mother while driving to work, urging her to contact Karen Bobo about the alarming noises. Meanwhile, the family dog's constant barking woke Holly's brother, Clint, from his sleep. When he checked to see what was going on, he was faced with unfamiliar, tense voices. As he opened the window shades, he noticed two figures on the carport, kneeling near the garage, engaged in what appeared to be a furious exchange.
Holly was knelt down in the garage, and a man in camouflage, who I identified as Drew, were knelt down in the garage facing each other.
He recognized one of the individuals as Holly's and assumed the other was her boyfriend, Drew.
I listened just briefly, and I could tell it was a male and a female voice. I never was able to really tell what they were saying. Well, as I listened a little bit closer, I could tell that was Holly's voice, so I knew it was Holly. So in my mind, the male's voice I knew to be Drew.
Clint believed the man was Drew due to his camouflage attire. They had communicated the night before, and Clint knew Drew was leaving for turkey hunting that morning. Clint hesitated to intervene in a possible argument between the two. He had just woken up and was unsure of the situation, so he tried to call his mother to see if Holly didn't have school. However, his calls went unanswered, so he sent a text message hoping that she would call back. Meanwhile, James' mother gave the details to Karen, who promptly called home. Clint asked about Holly's academic plans while she was out with Drew. Karen realized that something was wrong. Karen then called home and got through to Clint on the phone. She said to him, "Clint, that's not Drew, get a gun and shoot him now."
And he asked me, was Holly not going to school today? Was she going hunting with Drew? And I said, that's not Drew.
Clint was just told to shoot this guy by his mom on the phone. He still thought it was Drew. He was looking right at him. He knew Drew was hunting that morning, and this guy was wearing hunting gear, so hesitated. 5 minutes later, Karen was racing home. On the way, she dialed 911, but as she was driving, it went through to a different county's dispatcher. Back at the house, Clint looked outside again and saw the man dressed in camouflage walking with Holly into the woods. At this point, he noted that the man she was walking with wasn't Drew. He was bigger than Drew was. Clint then tried to call Holly's cell phone as well as Drew's cell phone. He couldn't get through to either. In response to his mother's plea, Clint grabbed a gun and walked outside through an open garage. He noticed a puddle of blood near Holly's car, which caused him to become concerned. He immediately dialed 911. At the same time, Karen also made a distress call to emergency services. She was driven home by a friend due to her panic. Authorities arrived at 8:10 a.m., followed by Karen. Frantically searching for her daughter, Karen entered the woods and called out Holly's name. Shortly after, Dana returned home to find the property surrounded by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, as well as the FBI, SWAT, and U.S. Marshals. The situation was chaotic and confusing, with people unsure of what to do. Dana urged the authorities to act quickly and bring back Holly. Dana was worried that someone who knew Holly and her routine might be involved in her disappearance.
It might have been somebody close, somebody that kind of knew our routine, or when I left, when she left, and when my daughter left to go to school.
Investigators later confirmed that a bloodstain found in the garage belonged to Holly, indicating that she was in danger. The community of Decatur County came together to search for her, with authorities, search dogs, helicopters, and thousands of volunteers combing the area day after day. The police also contacted AT&T to track Holly's cell phone. They traced the signal from her phone and found that it had traveled through Decatur County, heading north towards a wooded area near Interstate 40 before taking a southern route on another path. The phone's movement stopped at around 8:30 to 9 a.m. on Gooch Road. The police then considered the possibility that the suspect might be inside the house, which led to Clint being scrutinized. The authorities took immediate action to eliminate any doubts. They investigated him, finding possible scratches on his body. His computer was searched, his cell phone was monitored, and he underwent 2 polygraph tests. Eventually, he was cleared of any involvement in his sister's disappearance. In the days and weeks following the abduction, a trail of evidence was discovered along country roads. Holly's belongings, including her homework, notebook, cell phone, and the lunch her mother had prepared for her, were found scattered at random. A week had passed since Holly's abduction, and the community gathered for a solemn vigil, holding on to hope and praying for her safe return. In the face of uncertainty, Decatur County clung to the unity that defined small-town communities, determined to bring Holly home. As weeks passed, the names Zach Adams, his brother Dylan, cousin Jason Autry, and friend Shane Austin became focal points in the investigation surrounding Holly's abduction. These men were known in the community as delinquents and had a notorious reputation for their involvement with illicit substances. Of the group, Zach Adams stood out on the police radar. He had a lengthy criminal record, with arrests for illegal substance-related offenses, robbery, and assault. He had even shot his mother in the knee in 2004 and, in 2005, threatened to kill his grandparents. The police, aware of Zach's troubled past, decided to visit his home. Despite the suspicions surrounding him, Zach vehemently denied any involvement in Holly's disappearance. He provided an alibi, claiming he was at home with his girlfriend, Rebecca Earp, and his brother, Dylan, on the morning Holly went missing. The lack of substantial evidence prevented an arrest, leading to his release. The authorities then shifted their focus to another figure in Decatur County, Terry Britt, a registered offender who lived close to Holly's home. Britt had spent a significant portion of his life in prison for kidnapping and engaging in criminal conduct. He had a history of targeting young, blue-eyed, blonde women, much like Holly. His residence in northern Decatur County coincided with the general direction of Holly's phone on the day she vanished. When the police knocked on Britt's door, his immediate response was a preemptive denial. Even before the officers uttered a word, he proclaimed his innocence, asserting that he hadn't taken advantage of anyone. This reaction was prompted by the news of Holly's disappearance, which had spread throughout the community. Britt's alibi claimed that he was buying a bathtub with his wife at the salvage yard. However, the store had no record of such a sale. Authorities had growing suspicions and obtained a search warrant. Cadaver dogs were brought in to scour his property. The dogs detected potential evidence in 2 of Britt's vehicles and various tools around his home. Although these items were seized for DNA testing, no clear evidence emerged. To delve deeper, law enforcement wiretapped Britt's phone and bugged his home in an attempt to record any incriminating conversations. However, the surveillance measures produced no breakthroughs, leading many to question whether Britt should be cleared of suspicion. However, a recording of a conversation between Britt and TBI agent Terry Discovery surfaced, in which the suspect appeared to have disturbing dreams about Holly's kidnapping.
She's young, pretty, perfect, somewhat body.
Yeah.
Okay, like a toy. You can't wait to get her to wherever he's going to take her to, because he's wanting that body. But here comes reality. Now I've got a body. What am I going to do with it? If you keep it, you got to feed it. You got to hide it. And if you kill it, what are you going to do with it?
Despite the distressing content, Britt maintained his innocence, and detectives were unable to locate significant evidence linking him to Holly's abduction. Investigators shifted their focus away from Terry Britt after the case reached a dead end. The inquiry appeared to be stalled for 3 years until a substantial development occurred in February 2014. Zach Adams, one of the 4 men initially questioned about Holly's abduction, found himself in trouble again. This time, he was accused of robbery and threatening his girlfriend's sister at gunpoint. Zach was jailed for these offenses. During his detention, his brother, Dylan, was also charged with stealing firearms. Dylan had a learning disability and a lower-than-average IQ. His grandfather noticed that he frequently mixed up facts in stories, but officials still considered him self-sufficient because he had obtained a driver's license. Dylan was later cleared of the gun charges after making a plea deal. As part of the deal, he had to live with a retired police officer who happened to be a friend of the Bobo family. 5 weeks after moving in with the retired officer, a call to emergency services revealed a new development in the already complex case. Dylan claimed to have information about Holly's fate. According to his testimony, he saw Holly on the morning of April 13th in Zach's living room, sitting in a green chair and wearing a pink shirt. There were 2 people in the room, Jason, his cousin, and Shane, their friend. Dylan further claimed that these males had taken advantage of Holly, even filming the horrible deeds. Zach had made frightening jokes about Holly's absence for 3 years, convinced that the authorities would never discover her. According to reports, he boasted about exploiting Holly. He claimed to have recorded himself participating in abhorrent behaviors with her, which was consistent with Dylan's evidence. The purported videotape that law enforcement was looking for could not be found. Zach also used Holly's name as a threat against his ex-partner, stating that he would tie me up as he did to Holly Bobo and I would never be seen again. Although the alleged footage was never found and Dylan's initial confession was later withdrawn due to allegations of coercion, these confessions led to the arrests of Dylan, Zach, Jason, and Shane. It later emerged that Zach and Jason had been students of Karen, Holly's mother, during elementary school. On April 30, 2014, Shane was granted immunity in exchange for his cooperation. However, just 3 weeks later, his immunity was revoked after suspicions that he had stopped cooperating. 5 months later, on September 13, 2014, a local guy called Larry Stone made a horrifying discovery while searching for ginseng in the woods. A human head as well as a pail containing human bones were discovered. The skull has a bullet hole in the back that pierced the left cheekbone. These remains were proven to be Holly Bobo's. Personal things found beside the skeletal evidence included purses, lipstick, pens, and Holly's inhaler. I just want to apologize to the Bobo's family for their loss. Everything was shattered because of these men. Karen fainted when she saw the recovered belongings during the trial, showing the emotional impact Holly's family had endured. As the investigation continued, one of the suspects, Shane, was found dead in a hotel room in February 2015 after committing suicide. The 3 remaining suspects, Zach, Dylan, and Jason, spent 3 years in court, pleading not guilty to charges of kidnapping, physical assault, and murder in Holly's case. Throughout this time, investigators persistently sought confessions from any of the suspects. Jason eventually reached an agreement with prosecutors in 2017, despite years of denying his involvement. He agreed to accept an 8-year sentence on charges of aggravated kidnapping and solicitation to kill in exchange for testifying against the other suspects in the September 2017 trial. Jason's testimony contradicted Dylan's previous assertions. According to Jason, he went to Shane's residence expecting them to be producing illegal drugs, only to discover that Zach, Dylan, and Shane had already kidnapped and attacked Holly. Jason claimed to see Dylan burning goods in a huge barrel while Zach stood by his pickup truck. Zach allegedly sought Jason for help burying a body wrapped in a blanket in the back of his truck. Jason sought recreational drugs in exchange for assisting Zach in hiding Holly's body. On their journey, he saw that there were no shovels or axes typically in the truck, prompting Jason to advise that the body be disposed of in water. He claimed Holly's intestines were the only thing holding her afloat, so he gutted her to keep the body underwater. Following this, they traveled to an abandoned location across the Tennessee River intending to dispose of Holly's body. On the route to this site, Zach brazenly boasted about exploiting Holly in Shane's grandmother's barn, claiming Dylan and Shane had also taken advantage of her. When they arrived at the barren place by the river, Jason reported that he saw Holly's foot move as they put her body to the ground. He also detected a slight sound of suffering emanating from the blanket. Disturbed by this, he notified Zach, who pulled out a revolver from his car and shot her in the head. The gunshot was fired 3 times, and they could hear a neighboring boat approaching. The group, fearing capture, quickly returned the body to the vehicle. Following this incident, Zach allegedly approached Jason with another disturbing request: to murder his brother, Dylan. Zach wanted Dylan silenced, as he had been talking about what happened with Holly. Zach offered Jason a piece of his inheritance when their wealthy grandfather died in exchange for carrying out the murder. Jason agreed and took Dylan fishing on the Tennessee River in a bass boat, intending to shoot and dispose of him in the water. However, his plans were foiled by another fisherman who recognized Dylan and knew his grandfather. Jason's plans were ruined by this incident, and he never tried to carry them out again. Jason also claimed that Zach said they were at Holly's house that morning to teach Clint how to cook illegal things. They got there early and encountered Holly, who screamed when she saw them. This led to them kidnapping her. However, Clint denied the accusations, stating that he had already been cleared after being considered a person of interest. With Jason's testimony, Zach was the only obvious suspect. Yet, there were other complications with Zach's involvement in Holly's case. When investigators tracked his phone's location at the same time as Holly's that morning, they found that he was kilometers away from where they had tracked Holly's phone. Several witnesses claimed to have seen Zach kill Holly, including his then-girlfriend Rebecca. During the trial, Zach's attorney, Jennifer Thompson, tried to discredit Rebecca by mentioning her alleged substance abuse and suggesting that her memory was unreliable. Thompson also suggested that Rebecca had been coerced by TBI agent Valerie Trout, insinuating a motive to lie. The attorney claimed that the detectives were intent on pinning Holly's murder on someone and had unfairly targeted her client. Despite Clint's description of the abductor not matching him, Zach Adams was found guilty and convicted on September 22, 2017, of kidnapping, assault, and murdering Holly Bobo. Initially sentenced to death, Zach pleaded for life in prison, which was granted. He filed an appeal for a new trial 5 years later, in 2022, but the Tennessee Appeal Court refused it. Dylan Adams, Zach's brother, entered an Alford plea in 2018 to a lesser charge of facilitation of murder, earning the 35-year sentence he is now serving. On the other hand, Jason Autry was released from prison in September 2020. However, a few months later, he was indicted on a federal firearms charge in 2021. In 2020, Tennessee government officials introduced the Holly Bobo Act, which aims to enhance the Tennessee Endangered Persons Alert Program in memory of Holly. The act gives the TBI the authority to issue endangered person alerts for any missing individual under the age of 21, which is an increase from the previous age limit of 18. This change became effective in January 2021. Despite the legal complications and challenges, Holly's family expressed confidence that the right individuals had been imprisoned.
Finally, after 6.5 years, I do feel that we got justice for our daughter. Thank you.